Next up, Rick and Rick rule the Super Bowl. Super Bowl advertising, that is.
That's right. We've got the big scores and the total snores from Ad Bowl 2019.
We're talking Budweiser, Hulu, Burger King,
Verizon, Google, Jeep, and more.
And it all starts right here, right now.
On the one show where everybody's name is Rick.
And everybody rules the world.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Happy Super Bowl.
Yes. We are recording this episode the day after Super Bowl Sunday. So it's a special Ad Bowl 2019 edition of Rick and Rick. We're going to be counting down our top 5 favorite spots from the big game, along with our one least favorite. I'm Rick Matheson, of course, and here as always, joining me is my buddy Rick Wooten. And
Hey,
did you have a dog in this hunt?
I did not. It's kind of funny. I hadn't realized this is how out of sports I am. I hadn't realized that the Rams were from California. I guess they're from LA. And so I was thinking like, nobody from the West Coast is playing, so what do I care? But yeah. So no, I so didn't have a dog in the game. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, me neither. To be fair to you, I believe the Rams were Los Angeles for many years and then left and then came back.
Right.
You
Right.
forgive
Well,
me.
yeah, but I've never been a huge football fan. I love going to the Super Bowl parties and enjoying it with my friends. I might even go do a fantasy football league next year just because it's fun to, participate in it. But I've never really been one for being able to track all the athletes, all the coaches, the different standings.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, neither have I. I mean, I have friends who remember the specific scores of last year and the year before and the year that who played whom and all the stats of individual players. And part of the problem is I'm mainly like a end of season fan. I don't really care until it starts to really get down to things. So that's part of the problem. But any rate, for anyone who is keeping track of such things, the cost of an advertisement in this year's Super Bowl, CNBC said it was $5.25 million, so $5.25 million per 30-second spot, and a couple of them I think were over 30 seconds.
Wow.
Gotta say, before we dive in here, big winners. If there are any winners in this year's Ad Bowl, they have to include David Miami and Goodby Silverstein and Partners, San Francisco. These two agencies each had, I think it was at least 3 clients running Super Bowl ads this year.
Wow. That's awesome.
Let's dive in here. So we're going to be counting down our top 5 favorites each.
Okay, my number 5 was an interesting pick. I actually sent this to you a couple hours ago. Head and Shoulders has done this campaign for a little bit called Headstrong. And for the Super Bowl, what they decided to do, and I don't know, maybe this disqualifies them, but I'm putting them in here anyways. What they decided to do was to run ads, I think locally, during the Super Bowl for 3 companies. And so they identified a Pastor Nancy, who marries people out of the back of her van, Michael, who is I don't know what you call him, a goat herder that rents out his goats to, chew up things in your yard. And then the third one is a woman named Jennifer, who has a company where you could rent time coming into her building and breaking things to let out emotions and frustration. And so I thought this was absolutely clever. Instead of Head and Shoulders getting up there and, doing their typical, no flakes kind of ad, they took and flipped it around and said, hey, here are 3 people who represent our brand, the Headstrong. They're doing something despite people telling them not to. And so in the case of Nancy, Pastor Nancy, they had somebody that they're interviewing. It's like, oh my God, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Who would want to get married out of a van? Yet she did it, and she's constantly busy. For the Michael, the guy that decided to buy all these goats, they kind of flashed to his wife, and they're like, oh, so what did you say when Michael said he wanted to buy a bunch of goats? And she said, I told him to get a effing job. And then Jennifer, the same sort of thing, it's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And, they all 3 of them decided to create these businesses regardless of all the negative feedback that they got. And by all measures of what they were showing on the commercials, they were absolutely successful. So I love this, that Head and Shoulders, instead of spending a bunch of money on them necessarily, they've done it to these smaller companies to help them take off.
Wow.
So for me, and that it's got a social aspect to it. It's got a brand essence aspect to it. and it's a little unexpected. So for me, that was a solid number 5.
I think that's so smart to buy local right around the show or even just pregame. A lot of times that's what gets seen by people. They start to settle in, get ready for the game, and those things get noticed. If there were any kind of themes this year, it did seem like playing it safe was one of them, with one obvious exception, looking at you, eat like Andy, and female empowerment, and then robots, lots and lots of robots. It's like last year, if there were 3 robots, boy, this year we got to have 6 or 7 robots on different commercials. So that was kind of interesting. But my number 5, I'm surprised that I put this in my top 5 list. But honestly, when I was sitting down before the show here to write down, okay, which ads do I even remember? This one is so simple. It's this one from Goodby Silverstein Partners. It's a Pepsi brand. It's the Bubly seltzer brand. And this was that spot where, it's Michael Bublé is in the spot, and there's all back and forth about, he thinks that the drink is called Bublé, and he's arguing with the little girls, no, it's Bubly, that kind of thing. That one creatively just is staring you in the face. You have to do that playoff, Bubly and Bublé. But nothing spectacular about this commercial, but it did its job of really making a very simple, memorable message, and obviously helping everybody now realize that Bubly's not the boring store brand that they thought it was. It was simple, got to the point, isn't a great spot, but definitely accomplishes its mission. That's like old school marketing, making sure people are going to remember and go, okay, that's that drink I heard about. So that's my number 5 this year.
I'm glad you put this on there. This was one that I thought about putting on my list as well, mostly because it was very subtle tongue-in-cheek humor, almost like the beverage itself, which is, a sparkling soda with just a little bit of flavor to it. So I really enjoyed this one. They left me with a laugh and, made me think about it for a little bit. So I really considered putting this on my list. So good choice. Yeah. So number 4 for me, this is almost, hopefully this isn't on your list, but it's almost a shout out to you. So Michelob Ultra and the ASMR. We've done shows on ASMR. I've talked to one of my coworkers, her name's Paige, about ASMR. And I hadn't really seen an implementation of it that I thought was really awesome until I saw this commercial. And so, the setup is they had Zoe Kravitz. She's in some mountain clearing, and she has these 2 microphones set up, and she's whispering in one and then whispering the other. And then she pulls out the beer bottle and she's tapping her nails on it and, kind of rolling it around on the table, making noise and pouring it in the glass. And it's just a very fun, interesting commercial. Definitely very, very different than everything else that we saw in the Super Bowl. So for that, I had to give him props and to call this one out and make this my number 4.
I think that's a great one. That is such a great spot. And look, folks, listeners will remember we called this well over a year ago that some big advertiser is going to do ASMR. And there have been instances of commercials with ASMR, but this is Super Bowl. This is freaking Ad Bowl 2019, and someone has done a ASMR commercial, and it is a good one.
A $5 million ASMR commercial.
$5 million to whisper. My number 4 was a little different. And really, this one is getting my number 4 just because it felt like a Super Bowl spot. Most commercials this year were so safe, but it just felt like something you would see at the Super Bowl. And this is the Mercedes A-Class commercial. So Mercedes wanted to show off that new A-Class. It's natural speech recognition. And so the spot has this guy, this dude, he realizes that whatever he says, happens. And so the ad has him changing traffic lights, find the lost cat, finding the cat. He frees Will at one point. He's blowing up parking tickets. And I like the actor's delivery. And then all to show just how great it would be if everything in life listened to you like the Mercedes A-Class automobile. He gets into his car and he says, change the color cast. So he said, change color. And the interior of the car changes to suit his mood just at the sound of his voice. This had better, after this commercial, be like freaking flawless speech recognition. Because my speech recognition, I'm like screaming, I just thought this was a great spot. Lots of energy, unexpected explosions, the delivery. It just felt like a good Super Bowl spot.
So my number 3 is a commercial that Olay did. Now, part of this is it took me back to, my early 20s. It had Sarah Michelle Gellar in it from Buffy the Vampire Slayer fame. And she stars in this commercial as somebody in a house. I think there's a husband as well, and they're being chased through the house by basically Freddy or something like that. And they're going through all this thing. They hide in the bedroom. They lock the door. She pulls out presumably her iPhone because they're trying to use face recognition, and the phone won't unlock. And she holds it up a different way, and the phone won't unlock. She tries it another way, the phone doesn't unlock. And then she says, "Oh, that's right. I've been using Olay, and my skin looks so much younger. Look at this picture of me, from 2 weeks ago," and it's like aged 70 years. And da da da. And then the guy eventually breaks through the door and comes in. He's like, your skin does look so much. Yeah. Anyways, it was just slapstick, stupid, funny. It took me back to literally what Buffy the Vampire Slayer was like, whatever that was, 15, 20 years ago. And it was just hilarious. I enjoyed it. I think I've seen some people pan it, but I just think it was a fun ride.
I was just relieved to see that she was still alive. I just think we're going to have to send out the noodle drones to find her somewhere, because it's like, where the hell? I forgot she existed. So it was good to see her again. Hopefully she's on some great show or something now that I just don't know about. Or if not, she's about to break big again. That was a great spot. My number 3 is Hyundai, the elevator. So this was a minute-long spot and felt like that was probably pushing it. It took a little too long to get to the brand part, but this was with Jason Bateman as an elevator operator who's kind of dropping off a mix of different characters in different locations, basically comparing traditional car shopping to root canals, jury duty, and so forth. And then this couple pulls out the shopper assurance app, or this program will help me get the car that I want, without all the hassle. Too long. Should have been a 30-second spot. They spent $10 million on this. Over $10 million to run it.
Making the commercial? Oh, no, just the advertising time.
Yeah, because it was a minute long. So a lot of money. Should have been 30 seconds, but I just thought it was fun. So that's my number 3. We're going to have to take a break real quick. When we come back, we're going to continue with our countdown of our top 5 favorite ads from this year's Super Bowl. So stay tuned. And we're back. Thanks, Rick and Rick Nation. We are counting down our top 5 favorite ads from the 2019 Super Bowl. I gotta say, Bud Light did a great job in their series of commercials during the game. I don't know how many they bought, but boy, that was a lot of money. They did a good job, I think, of driving home their point of differentiation. I know that corn providers weren't happy about that commercial, that line of attack, but it was doing a compare and contrast with its competitors. I think in that respect, it did its job well. I just didn't really love the spots themselves. But when they pulled that strange Game of Thrones tie-in, it just confused me. I thought that it was HBO pulling a Tide commercial.
That was so what? Yeah, that was so weird. I didn't get that one. And even when I look back on it, it's like, okay, that doesn't reflect well on Bud. What is it like that? Is that them showing that that's the end of that Dilly Dilly series? I mean, I wasn't getting it. No. I knew the Game of Thrones was coming, and great. We saw a dragon and the mountain, and that's great. I don't know. It didn't work for me either. I just didn't get it. I just didn't think it was a compelling commercial.
Yeah, not at all. Okay, so what's your number? We're down to number 2. So what's your number 2?
Number 2. So I knew this would happen. My number 2 is your number 3, the Hyundai elevator. I thought this sketch, this commercial, this whatever was awesome. I love Jason Bateman. He's been in a new TV show called Ozark that I've been telling you about. You got to watch it. And he does a phenomenal job in there. And in this commercial, he does as well. And I just really enjoyed, seeing all these people, dump onto this elevator, and then they're going down through the levels of hell. And that, buying a car, particularly from a used car dealer, can be a horrible buying experience. So it was pretty clever on how they worked this whole thing out. But did you hear that they are getting flambéed by a certain group over this commercial? The vegans.
Vegans, right. They're making fun of the vegans. They got
right. So
getting a root canal, having to go to dinner with the vegans is just going to be hell on earth.
Well, that's right. In the beet, what was it? The beet loaf instead of the meatloaf. I don't know. I personally thought this was hilarious. I think that people need to learn to laugh at themselves. And in this particular case, I thought it was done tastefully. But anyway, so I thought this was a great commercial. I enjoyed it, even regardless of all the controversy around it now. I just felt like this was a great one.
It was also number 4 on USA Today's ad meter. So out of viewers who rated the commercials, it was number 4.
Nice.
It did rank in the number
Nice.
5, in the top 5. So we weren't alone in ranking it there. My number 2 was Verizon and the coach that wouldn't be there. So Verizon's spot where it has the Los Angeles Chargers coach, Anthony Lynn, and he's speaking to this group of first responders, about how he was saved by first responders. And little does he know that some of them, the people actually around them, were the people that helped save his life when he was in a car accident back in, I guess it was 2005. So, it just got me. It was like, oh, wow, that's powerful. It reminded me of this video I saw just the other day of this man who had helped children escape from Nazi Germany. And he was at this symposium or something, and he's sitting there in the audience with all the people. And he doesn't know that all of the people in the audience are the children that he saved. And they're growing up now. And they turn to him, and then he realizes, and it's just this really powerful moment. And this kind of reminded me of that. It literally had nothing to do with Verizon, except that its brand positioning, the idea, and it was a subtle tie-in, being a network you can rely on, essentially was the message on it. And there was another spot where it was called The Team That Wouldn't Be There. And it had an entire group of football players who had been saved by first responders at some point in their lives. And I guess you can go online to learn about their stories. I just thought this was great. If you're going to do a public service oriented spot during the Super Bowl, I thought this was a really nice way to do it. And they were able to make that connective tissue, albeit it was very mild, back to the brand. So that's my number 2 spot.
I thought that was an extremely powerful ad. And I do know about the one you're talking about. I believe it was a talk show that was this gentleman was invited to, and the entire audience, every single person in the audience, 300 people, whatever it was, were children that he had saved. It was an incredibly powerful commercial. So my number 1 also is one that pulls at the heartstrings, and it's you and I've talked about this before. A lot of times brands try to tie into the emotion, they try to tie into the feels, and it doesn't always work. And there is this my number 1, Microsoft. This is a series of ads that I've seen them do. I can think of at least 2 right now, where they're tying into this idea of children with disabilities who are left out of being able to game with people. So recently, within the last 6 months or so, Microsoft has released a controller that is extremely customizable, has very large buttons. It has just a different way of controlling, and it's adaptable to a bunch of different disabilities or limitations that a child with disabilities might have. And so this whole commercial, the first commercial that came out several months ago, I think in November, that commercial just focused on one kid who was beating a level, and all the kids in the neighborhood running to his house to watch him do it. It's a very, very strong ad. This one takes a different approach, and it looks at a bunch of kids, probably about 5 or 6 kids, and how they're using this controller to do the same, how they're using this controller to participate in this world of gaming with all their friends. And it is extremely powerful. I love it. It ties back to their brand. It ties back to the products they make, meaning mostly the Xbox and the games. And I just love it. I love this commercial so much.
Damn it. This was my number 1 too. We
Oh,
all win. Yes. The spot really did balance this pitch for the new adaptive controller with an empowerment message about opening up new possibilities for young gamers with limited mobility, opening up new possibilities in general for kids with limited mobility. And I love the ending copy, when everybody plays, we all win. I don't think I ever envisioned a day when I would say that my favorite Super Bowl spot was from Microsoft.
No.
But I felt like they showed everybody else how to do a good Super Bowl spot. It had what Verizon, for instance, we were talking about the Verizon spot. You knew what the commercial was for. You got what the product was. And yet still they had a very empowering message. Perfect, message, something empowering. You still understood what the product was, and the product had something to do with what you were talking about. So
Exactly.
going for Microsoft. All right. My least favorite spot for this year's Super Bowl, I mean, by a lot, was the Burger King Andy Warhol spot, Eat Like Andy. Any listener of the show knows we've been just raving about David Miami, the work that they're doing for Burger King, really over the last 2 years. This spot, I saw it and I literally was like, what? It was the spot where it's showing literally it's found footage. This footage was shot back in the 80s, and I think there have been parodies of it even in the last couple of years, but it was Andy Warhol sitting down and he's opening up a Burger King, and there's no sound. It's just the ambient sound, and he's trying to get ketchup out of a bottle. And I don't know, it was kind of weird how he took the bun top off, but then put the ketchup in the wrapper. I'm not sure. Did he even didn't he fold the burger before he put it into his mouth? It was just,
I don't know.
And then it just said, go online, I guess, to Eat Like Andy. And I literally was thinking, I pay attention to this stuff. I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be saying, and I don't care. It felt like advertising for advertising professionals that watch it'll win a bunch of awards this year just because it was so daring, blah, blah, blah. But I just imagined consumers going, yeah, whatever. In fact, this was the worst performing spot in USA Today's ad meter.
Oh, wow.
It was the worst by far. I'm thinking whatever brand that was that had the townspeople where they build whatever the brand is, talking about what losers, or we're nobodies, we build X and Y and Z. I bet that brand is so thankful for a spot.
That's awesome.
Because they're no longer the worst ad. I mean, they're lucky I can't remember what brand it was. I was like getting depressed. I could just imagine all the people from that town like sitting around watching the Super Bowl and like going, yeah, this is great. And all the high fives the next morning at the assembly line. It's like so depressing.
I got to admit, on that one, I know which one you're talking about. And on that one, I didn't finish the ad. I ended up changing it. I was like, wow, this is so bad. This is not going to make, my top 5 list. But then I didn't hate it, so it didn't make my bottom list either. So it was total meh. In fact, I found that there was a lot of ads that I just wasn't that excited about. There wasn't a ton of horrible ads and a ton of great ads. It was just like everything was in the middle. Everything was kind of meh. And the stuff that it ended up being at the top was really good. I don't know that any of them I would say was like, amazing.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I didn't hate the Andy Warhol one. I thought it was, I hate to say this, I felt it was kind of lazy. It felt like we're going to spend all of our advertising dollar on the placement. So, hey, let's go pull some footage out of the archive and use that as a commercial.
Right.
And so I was a little disappointed in it, but I didn't hate it. But that's probably because I like Andy Warhol. So, there's that.
I read, I don't know if this is true, but they should have researched this beforehand if it was true. But apparently the person who shot that footage said that he said, oh, can we get McDonald's? And they go, oh, we can run and get it for you. And go, oh, never mind. I'll eat the Burger King.
Oh, that's
if that
bad.
were real, that's going to be online the next day. So don't, be
So let's keep looking. So my least favorite ad was from a company that I think 2 years ago, I think I was giving them the top spot, and it was avocados from Mexico.
Oh.
And 2 years ago, I thought their commercial was the bomb. I thought it was so hilarious. They had this whole, picking the different things that each country was going to get. And it was kind of like a World Cup kind of thing. And it was hilarious. And then last year, their commercial was kind of like, it was a little weird. That wasn't nearly as funny. And this year, it was stupid. Did you see the commercial?
I saw I think I watched the commercial online a couple days ago, then saw it. I can't tell you what happened. I just kind of tuned it out.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was basically the idea of a dog show, but they flipped it on its head, and the dogs were the humans and the humans were the dogs. And so the humans had to run around, and it just wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Like they were so slapstick and funny 2 years ago, and then a little bit last year, and this year it was dead. It was like, wow, like that, you have fallen from grace. And this is the point where most companies would go, okay, now we need to change ad agencies.
Right.
This one was the worst one for me, just because I loved it so much 2 years ago, and I feel like they've fallen from grace.
With that, I think this is going to wrap up this episode of Rick and Rick Rule the World. Please be sure to tune in next time for the one show where everybody's name is Rick and everybody rules the world.